Which is better, the TCL Stylus 5G or the OnePlus Nord N20 5G? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Now, both of these devices have recently been launched within the last couple of months, and both of them are exclusive to both T-Mobile and Metro by T-Mobile. So if you're part of either of those two carriers, then here's two awesome options for you. Now, these phones certainly aren't meant to be the highest end out there. In fact, they are mid-range devices, so you certainly should keep your expectations in line, considering that these aren't supposed to be some of the best phones out there. That being said though, if you're not looking to spend too much, then you're getting a lot of value with either of these two phones. Now, these devices share a lot in common and also have quite a few differences, and I'm looking forward to going over all of that throughout this video. Now, the first thing I want to discuss are the displays with these devices. As far as the actual display sizes go, the TCL Stylus 5G without a doubt is the larger phone of the two. It does have a 6.81 inch display compared to 6.43 inches with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. Now, of course, both of these displays are relatively large, especially compared to many smartphones out there. But overall, I think that's a great thing because nowadays, people use their phones mostly for content consumption. Now, of course, people still use their phones for phone calls, text messages, and things like that. But also consider that more and more people are spending more and more time on social media and watching video content. So being able to do that on a large canvas, as you're able to do with either of these two phones, certainly does come in handy. Now with the TCL Stylus 5G, we have an IPS LCD display compared to an AMOLED display with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. Now I will say, AMOLED is definitely the better display technology of the two. You're getting much brighter colors, things are way more vibrant here, and viewing angles are much better as well. That being said though, I do think the TCL Stylus 5G still has a really nice looking display panel. Keep in mind that TCL has a long history of creating TVs. In fact, that's where they got their start, so they've taken their experience from that and included it here with their smartphones. Now with both of these devices, we do have 1080p displays. With the TCL, we have a PPI of 395 compared to 409 with the OnePlus. And then with the TCL, we have a 20.5:9 aspect ratio compared to 20:9 with the Nord N20 5G. So while those aspect ratios might seem pretty similar, we do have a bit more of a narrow and taller form factor here with the TCL Stylus 5G in comparison, but by having tall displays on both of these devices, it does make them very well optimized for social media especially, because in theory, you'll be able to see more of your social media feed in a single frame here, which means that you'll have to do less scrolling. Now, as far as the screen-to-body ratios go, with the TCL, we have an 84.9% screen-to-body ratio, and then we have an 85.3% screen-to-body ratio with the OnePlus. And you can see with both of these phones, we do have pretty small bezels all throughout, with the bottom bezels being a bit thicker. Now up top here with both devices, we do have hole punches for the front cameras, and with the TCL, the front camera is situated in the center, and it is 13 megapixels, compared to a camera situated in the upper left, with the Nord N20 5G, and that camera is 16 megapixels. So we do have a higher megapixel count with the OnePlus compared to the TCL. Now both of these phones are offered with 128 gigabytes of internal storage, and in addition to that, they do support microSD card expansion. So I do appreciate that we are getting quite a bit of internal storage with both of these phones. For most people, 128 gigs should be plenty of storage all throughout the time that you own these devices. However, of course, it is nice that you can always offload photos and videos, for example, onto a microSD card to clear up some of that internal storage. Now, neither of these two phones have wireless charging, but they do both feature fingerprint sensors and also face unlock. So with the TCL Stylus 5G, the fingerprint sensor is built into the power button, so we'll give that a try right now. And that is very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. So again, very accurate. And then with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, the fingerprint sensor is actually built into the display. And for this being a mid-range device, this feature does work really well. It's extremely fast and responsive, so in general, I have no issues with it. So I suppose it really comes down to personal preference on whether you prefer to have the fingerprint sensor on the power button or if you do want it built into the display. I know it's definitely a bit more interesting and more modern and futuristic by having it be built into the display, but on the other hand, you are going to be consistently using the power button if you're using the phone with the TCL Stylus 5G, so it does also make a lot of sense to have it be built into the power button itself. Now, both of these phones have a variety of different cameras on the back, however, there are quite a few differences. So the first thing is, with the TCL Stylus 5G, we have a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we have a triple camera setup, so one less camera, and we have a 64 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So unfortunately, with the OnePlus, there is no ultra wide angle camera, which is a bit of a disappointment because that is a feature that I do use quite a bit with any phone that does have it. That being said though, I am glad that both phones do at least have a variety of different cameras here. And then video recording with both of these devices unfortunately does max out at 1080p, so neither of these two phones supports 4K video recording. Now some people might ask, why do you need 4K video recording if these phones only have 1080p displays? And that's because at this point, many people own 4K TVs and they want to be able to take video in 4K with their device and put it on their TV in the full resolution. So again, not a total deal breaker, but at the same time, if you currently have a phone that has 4K video recording and you want to keep that feature, then just know that you're not getting that here with either of these two devices. Now here's how things look on the camera apps on both phones. This is of course with the main camera right now. And then with the TCL Stylus 5G, we can switch over to that ultra wide angle camera, which allows us to fit quite a bit more content into the frame. This feature especially comes in handy when doing outdoor photography, as you're really able to capture a lot of your surroundings. So again, it's too bad that we don't have that here with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. But then from here, we can head over to the macro cameras on both devices. And then with that, we can get very close up here and have things be nice and crisp and clear, which is great. And then with both phones, we do have portrait mode for the rear cameras. So with that, we get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And then we can flip around to the front-facing cameras on both phones. And you can also take portrait selfies. So you get those blurred out backgrounds here as well. Now, if you want to take standard selfies, we of course also have that ability. So you can really do whatever you want to do here. Both phones offer quite a few different features and abilities when it comes to the various cameras on them. So that's certainly a great thing, especially considering that these phones are a fraction of the price of some of the more premium offerings that are out there. Now with the TCL Stylus 5G, we have 4GB of RAM and the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. Whereas with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we have 6GB of RAM, so 2 extra gigabytes here. And we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G. So as the names of both of these phones do imply, they are compatible with 5G connectivity, and I mention this quite a bit in my various videos, but at this point in 2022, you can certainly get by without 5G. However, I would recommend if you're going to go out and buy a brand new phone at this point, get one that does support 5G at least, because then you're able to use your carrier's latest and greatest network. And of course, that's going to better future-proof you as time goes on. Now, as far as these phones do compare when it comes to the day-to-day performance, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests with both phones, and this will give you an indication of how they measure up, but essentially with the TCL Stylus 5G, I got a single core score of 553 and a multi-core score of 1738, compared to slightly better scores with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G at 679 for the single core and then 1966 for the multi-core. So these scores are not incredibly different, but at the same time, the OnePlus Nord N20 5G is the faster phone without a doubt, especially with the extra RAM there. I certainly think that does make quite a difference. So if you really want to get the most longevity out of your device, and you don't want the phone to really slow down as time goes on, I think both phones are still good options, but you are going to most likely have a better long-term experience with the OnePlus. That being said though, there are other factors that could influence long-term stability. For example, if either of these two companies does a software update that somehow messes things up or makes the phone a bit slower, then that certainly could cause an issue. For example, another phone from OnePlus, the OnePlus Nord N200, which launched last year, got an update from Android 11 to Android 12, and just with that one update, the phone is a lot slower. So it really comes down to the talent that either of these two companies have when it comes to software updates. Of course, the engineers have to try to make the updates as seamless as possible, and of course not slow down devices when they're deployed. But the reality is that sometimes things go well and then other times they don't. I would say that Samsung probably does have the best reputation when it comes to Android software updates as far as them being reliable and not slowing the phones down or causing other issues when they are deployed. And of course, neither of these two phones are from Samsung. That being said though, both TCL and OnePlus do make really good smartphones, so I'm not just here to compliment Samsung. These companies also create really nice phones. Now with the TCL Stylus 5G, we have a 4000 mAh internal battery, and this phone does support 18-watt fast charging, and there is an 18-watt fast charger included in the box, which is great. And then with the OnePlus, we have a slightly larger battery at 4500 mAh, and this phone supports 33-watt fast charging, which is really fast, and also there is a 33-watt fast charger included in the box. So really cool to see that not only do we have chargers included in the boxes for both of these phones, but they're chargers that can actually recharge these phones at the maximum rate. Now, as far as the software goes, there are some similarities and some differences. Of course, both phones are based off Android. However, out of the box, with the TCL Stylus 5G, we do have Android 12, whereas the OnePlus Nord N20 5G is still stuck on Android 11. So I certainly wish that this phone was launched with Android 12. It will get that update eventually, but I have no idea when. And then both of these phones do feature NFC, so that's awesome. NFC is the technology that's necessary for mobile contactless payments. So if you like to use Tap and Pay with Google Pay, then you can do that here with either of these two phones. But now that we've gone over a variety of different features and specifications of these two devices, let's now compare the hardware. Now I already talked quite a bit about the front panels here. Of course, the TCL Stylus 5G is the larger phone of the two, but we are getting better display technology with the OnePlus, with it being AMOLED. So in that sense, I kind of consider it a tie. Now both of these devices are made completely out of plastic, besides the displays, which are made of glass. However, I do feel like the general design of the TCL Stylus 5G is pretty boring overall. I really don't think they could have made it more boring than they did. Whereas with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, I wouldn't say it's anything special necessarily, but I do think it's a bit more interesting. I really like this finish on the back of the phone. I like how it's kind of a matte finish, but at the same time has a wavy look to it. And the camera module design is a bit more interesting as well. Now taking a look at the left side of both devices, both phones do have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card, and then with the OnePlus we have volume up and volume down. Then on the right side of both devices, with the TCL we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which is also the fingerprint sensor. And then with the OnePlus we just have the power button here. Then up top here on both phones, they both have noise canceling microphones. And then on the bottom of both devices, they both have 3.5mm headphone jacks, microphones, USB-C ports for charging and data transfer, and speakers. However, one of the signature features of the TCL Stylus 5G, which hence its name, Stylus, is that we have a stylus included in the phone. So the stylus is very easy to stow away within the device. It features a pop-out, pop-in design here. Another cool thing too is that the stylus does feature a magnet, so when you're putting it in the phone, it actually makes it a bit easier to stow it away because of that. And in addition to that, the magnet makes it really difficult for the stylus to fall out. But you can use this stylus for general navigation. You can also use a variety of these different apps that are built in to do e-signatures. You can create GIFs or GIFs. You can split the screen with it. You can create area screenshots, all kinds of cool things with the stylus. So that's great. So overall, I don't think there's any downside to having the stylus, since if you end up not really using it, it's not really taking up necessarily any extra space, since it does stow into the actual phone itself. So in conclusion, I think both of these devices have their various strengths and weaknesses. Now with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, I would say the best thing about this phone definitely has to be the display with how great it looks. Whereas with the TCL Stylus 5G, the main strength here is that we do have a stylus and it does work really well. So most importantly, I'm really curious to know what you think. Which of these two phones do you prefer and why? Definitely let me know in the comment section below, but this is Kevin here comparing the TCL Stylus 5G versus the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next one.